Look, there's a flock of bone collectors coming in. We need to get these bodies buried before we join them. You can either help or you can stop slowing us down before it's too late.
Hello, and welcome to Tuna's Tales. This time on Pondering Monsters, we'll be covering the Bone Collector from Kobold Press's Tome of Beasts 3. This undead creature is known to collect materials for necromancers and other powerful spellcasters that deal in undeath. Normally, they collect all manner of useful parts, though they prefer the bones as a tasty little treat. So, if you're curious how a town might react when a flock of them are about to descend upon the people living there, then stick around as we get into it. As our heroes return to town, they see what looks like everyone working together to dig a giant hole in the ground with a pile of bodies nearby. Slightly bewildered and off-put at this behavior, our heroes approach someone who seems to be shouting orders to see just what the heck is going on here. They learn that a group of gnolls attacked the town the other night. The townsfolk were successful in driving them off, but they have a larger problem now. A flock of bone collectors appear to have picked up the scent of the dead and have been spotted not too far away. The townsfolk are trying to get these bodies in the ground as fast as possible because, if they don't, then they might just get swept up in the flock themselves. As our heroes try to think of a way to help, they hear people start screaming nearby. The first of the flock is here. People start to panic and run for shelter as our heroes leap into action to try and buy the townsfolk some time. Our heroes fight valiantly, but there are just too many bone collectors to stop them all. When things are looking their most grim, our heroes hear someone calling out to them to come inside quickly. They rush to shelter and just manage to make it. With most of the townsfolk saved, everyone starts trying to think of what to do next.
No thanks.
What now?
I said no thanks. I don't want my bones stolen. I'm kind of attached to them.
No one's gonna steal your bones, Red. Come on, don't you have any questions?
I do. You promise no bone stealing?
I promise no bone stealing.
Then first up, this sounds like a lot of creatures to run at once. How would that work?
Good question. The bone collectors are only CR 1/2, but they seem a little tougher than that to me. That being said, if we look at the CR as just a starting point, a 5th level party of 5 would technically have a medium encounter against 10 of them.
I don't know if I believe that.
And you probably shouldn't. At that low of a level, a 2-to-1 action economy can be rough at best, especially with some of the abilities that this particular creature has.
So, what can we do?
Several things. We can reduce the number of bone collectors down to about 4 to 6 and run them in waves. Or we can scale them down and make them weaker. We also have the option of turning them into minions.
Ooh, I like minions.
So do my players. If you're familiar with Matt Colville, then you're probably aware that he's got some rules for turning any monster into a minion pretty easily.
So if we make this easier for the party, is there still a chance for failure?
I'd say yes in a mechanical sense. If the party all fall unconscious, then I'd consider that a failure, but not a loss necessarily.
What do you mean?
Well, let me ask you something. What would we consider a win with this encounter?
The party surviving and saving the townsfolk?
Sure, but what if we took it a little further here? What if we say that a win is also the party beating the creature in charge of these bone collectors? Now, what if the party falling unconscious means that they get captured and brought in front of the master of the flock?
Oh, so this encounter is useful for an opening hook then?
Yes, it works great as a start to some sort of arc, plot, or villain introduction even. Get the party involved immediately with the town in trouble hook and take it from there. If it's too much for them, then you can also trot out the villain early to bother them a little.
So if there's a villain, how does the party find out that there's something controlling these creatures?
Easy. You can just tell them. If they don't all fall unconscious, have someone in the town that is locked inside with the party know some info about these creatures. They come forward and tell the party that bone collectors typically work for evil necromancers, and that the collection of bodies typically isn't a good sign. You can also have the party see some townsfolk that are still alive being carried away by these creatures to prompt them to go rescue them.
Wait, did you just say that the party gets locked inside on this one?
Potentially. You can give them that option as an out that they can take when you feel like combat has gone on long enough.
How long should they be locked inside then?
Not too long, I'd say. You can go a couple different ways with this one, the easiest being that after some amount of time, the bone collectors are done and just fly off.
What's a not so easy one?
For that, you can try to steer the party towards needing to sneak out so that they can go after the villain controlling these creatures.
What do you mean by steer them?
Well, if you use that knowledgeable NPC that I mentioned earlier, then you can have them say something about how the bone collectors will probably be here for a while now, and that the fastest way to deal with them is to get rid of their master.
Oh, okay. That way sounds like fun.
I think so too. You can even turn it into a small chase moment if your party fail their stealth checks and have to run from some of these creatures on their way out.
Well, neat. I can't wait to see this put together.
Well, then let's get going on that. You hear screaming start from somewhere nearby. The flock has arrived and is descending upon the townsfolk. You ready your weapons as you all wade into the crowd of people fleeing these winged undead in an attempt to stop them from stealing the townsfolk. All you really need to get this started is a town of some sort. Not too big and not too small. It could be the party's home base, somewhere out in the wilds, or a well-known settlement. As the party arrives, they see the townsfolk digging a mass grave for a pile of bodies. These can be gnolls, goblinoids, crazed beasts, you name it. End of the day, there just needs to have been a group of creatures that attacked the town the night before. If this doesn't get your party interested in asking what's going on here, then you can trigger the flock. As it descends upon the town, the townsfolk can start running away and screaming for help. If your party are true heroes, then they should be leaping into action at this and trying to help the townsfolk escape while they fight off the bone collectors. When it comes to combat on this one, I think waves are the easiest approach here. Depending on how tough your party is, you can have 4 to 6 of these creatures nearby that they can start fighting. Once they're done with that group, you can narrate how the party has helped some townsfolk before another wave swoops in at them. Keep an eye on how your players are feeling with this one, as this encounter does run the risk of going from enjoyable to a slog fairly quickly if you're not careful here. After about 3 or 4 waves of this, you can give the party an out by having an NPC call out to come join them inside. Letting your players know that the townsfolk that can be saved have been saved at this point is probably a good idea too. You can further enforce this signal by narrating how there are more creatures moving towards the party than any of the previous waves have had. You hear a cacophony of wings and shadows fall over you all. As you look to the source, you can see that several hundred of these creatures are now blotting out the sun and are moving in your direction. As you scramble to come up with a plan, you hear someone call out to you.
Quick, in here, before they steal your bones!
Some real talk here. If you're playing with newer players, be aware that they might think that they're supposed to fight and won't retreat. If you see that starting, you can call out that a PC has a sense of self-preservation and would know that staying would lead to their death. Don't hesitate to make this clear if you feel that there's some miscommunication around this. If they understand and still stick to their guns, then there's not much you can do. After the fact, if they say that they didn't think that would really happen, or that they didn't fully understand, then I'd say it's okay to retcon their choice this once. Just don't make a habit out of it. Once the party is inside, you can include skill checks for them to hold the door closed, block any windows, or to hide and stay quiet as these undead birds try to force their way in to get at them. Standard DCs of 12 to 14 for 5th level apply here, and after a successful check or two, you can have things quiet down. If you're using the knowledgeable NPC approach, then now is actually a perfect time to introduce them.
Creatures like that tend to do the dirty work of evil necromancers and the like. They must have picked up on the scent of the dead and decided to go shopping for their master. Someone ought to do something about that.
This NPC can have whatever knowledge you want your players to know about these creatures. They should offer it freely and can even throw in a reward for the party if they successfully deal with all of this. The end goal here is to get the party out into the world and on their way to deal with the creature controlling these bone collectors. If you wanted, you could even set things up so that some of the living townsfolk got carried away and now the party needs to rescue them as well. With their mission in hand, your party can try to make their way out of town. If you want to go the route of having the bone collectors hang around, then you can do a group stealth check here to see if the party can sneak by the flock. Other options available to you for getting the party out of here are having a secret cellar exit that an NPC can offer up, or having the flock get called back to their master so that the town isn't swarmed anymore. Be careful around your party trying to follow the flock back to their end destination. While there's nothing wrong with them doing that, it does make sense to me that the master of the flock would be able to spot the party by looking through one of the bone collectors. If that happens, then they might just send an undead lackey to go meet them. Now, when it comes to the creature behind the curtain, you might just be asking who that could be. Sadly, that will have to wait until my next video, as we have to talk about how you can challenge higher level parties with these lower CR creatures. Scaling on this one can be rough. The lower the CR of the creature to start, the harder it can be to challenge higher level characters with. Sheer numbers are always an option, but we may not want to go that route here. 15 bone collectors is just barely a medium encounter for a 10th level party of 5, while it takes 35 of them to make a medium encounter for 15th level characters. Aside from the action economy being in shambles with that many, it's just too much work for any GM to keep track of. So, I think it's time to start messing with their stats. First up, more hit points. They have 21 on average, but you can double or triple that for 10th and 15th level respectively. Next is AC. Their base 13 isn't bad, but you can also set it to a 15 without causing too much trouble. Their abilities are fine here, One of them actually makes all creatures within 60 feet crit on a 19 or 20, but their attacks are lacking a bit. Give them a 2 or 3 attack multi-attack and bump that 2 hit up to at least a +6 or 7. Those changes shouldn't be too over the top at 10th and 15th level, but if you want to use enough of these creatures to blot out the sun, then consider the minion rules I mentioned earlier. There's a video over on Matt Colville's channel, linked in the description, that shows a good step-by-step guide for how to convert any creature stat block into a minion. Otherwise, you can always replace the bone collectors with a stronger monster that you may find more suitable. A couple zombie clots, for example, could be a decent stand-in in a pinch. Hopefully you don't think that this encounter was for the birds. Besides, who wouldn't want to reenact Birdemic at their next D&D session? Bad puns and references to hilariously bad movies aside, if you liked this encounter and want to see what's next, then leaving a like and subscribing would be much appreciated. Of course, if you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions, then feel free to leave them in the comments below as well. As usual, thanks for letting me talk at you all, and until next time, keep pondering.